Hello, this is a video about product. From where you stand, what you make with a camera is your product, and if you just make one photograph, that's great. But as an event photographer, what you do is you make many photographs, and so I want to talk about what ends up being seen by the people who are in your market. And so let's talk about product. As a photographer, your product is what you are selling. It's what you're offering people, and it's what people want to pay for. Generally, that's what you're making. You're making what people want. In event photography, a lot of times what you're making is an individual photograph, or if you're making a collection of photographs for a client, you're making an album of photos. Maybe you're making an actual book if you're making a product for a wedding client or something like that. Maybe you're making individual prints, physical prints. Maybe you're sending a disc full of your images of the event to somebody. Maybe you are making your images available using a web gallery, and those who are at the event or those who have hired you can view the work using a web gallery, and maybe you have things for sale there. Or maybe what you're making in terms of a product is a video, a encapsulation of the event using your images as a slideshow sort of format. But these are things that you can offer to people. There are many other products. These are the main things that people who are in the business of making photographs at events offer up to their clients. All right, I guess I should mention that this should also include the idea of a link or a download. So that's something else. To get us started in talking about the idea of a product, I'd like to talk about some examples. So I've made a few albums of weddings, and I want to just show a couple of those to talk about what is included in those albums. And in doing that, we can talk about what you must do as an event photographer in telling a story. So let's take a look at those examples of products. This is a video, actually, of an album, a book that I made. It was printed at a lab, but I laid out all the pages and I made all the photographs that are in there. So I'm just going to play this through, and we can talk about the images that are included in it and how they were integrated so that they looked nice on the page, and also how they served as design elements. Some of them representing the wedding through the imagery that was there is important, of course. But using the idea of symbolism to represent the feeling is also important. So you can do that through capturing little tiny details alongside these very simple and standard. See here, standard group photos and things like that. This album is printed on flat sort of paper, but there are little textures that make things feel like they're popping out there. The images themselves, I'm just going to pause the video. The images themselves are photos that you would, as a photographer, make at an event, at a wedding in this case, and you would, I'm sure, not understand as you are approaching the wedding exactly what you're making, but you know the kinds of things you're looking for. And so the images you're seeing are the kinds of things that I was looking for as I was experiencing the event. And also, as I was doing that, I was also envisioning this final form, an album that would contain them. And I knew that I needed to represent the entire story by making sure I included different views and different angles and a variety of images that were symbols of what was there in front of me. Sometimes that included moments that I needed to pay attention to as the situation changed, or sometimes it was a little texture of something that was present the whole time. But in any case, these individual images are, you've seen photos like this, easy to make, but to make sure that you are telling the story is important as well. Okay, so the lighting in these scenes, some of them you recognize. You're like, I know what's going on here. There's a little bit of flash. There's a little bit of flash lighting up the scene, and you can tell that they're in mixed lighting. They have a little bit of light coming from behind them, and they're backlit. And you can tell that these flash photos were intended to fill in the shadows of those group shots. Here, we don't have flash. We're using the direct sunlight, and you can tell it's harsh light, but some faces are so gorgeous they just glow and make terrific shapes, and you don't need to fill in the shadows all the time. Cool. So moments that are happening obviously need to be paid attention to in addition to the kinds of textures that are present at those moments. Not really sure what to say about this at all. Yeah, moments. It's important to catch moments. Sometimes things happen just really quickly, and you gotta snap that thing. You don't know it's gonna happen all the time. Sometimes you have to try to anticipate it, but if you get it, you're rewarded. Yeah. All right. So in terms of a book, this is interesting. We're understanding the story as it unfolds only through seeing these images. I'm not really telling you much, but you see what's going on through these photographs, and each scene that is shown tells you, the viewer who is not there, a little piece of the story. It's important to understand that. We can kind of take 2 or 3 images in sequence and kind of take those and make animation out of them by showing the evolving time and the change. Stopping one of those moments is important, and understanding when it's a beautiful moment or when it's simply a representational moment. This is symbolic of one moment during the event. This was another moment. I wanted to represent this one as well, so I made a photograph of this as well. 2 different moments, same day, same thing. This is just artistic and sort of showing the detail of part of the event, which was her dress. And, it doesn't have to be all serious. You can have a little bit of fun sometimes. That's fine, Photo corners are just printed on the page. They're not real, but nobody knows that. Shh. And because this is a printed book, you can see that there is when you see those details, there is a texture to the printing of this, as it's a book printed using a screen press. But anyway, this is an album that is full. It has what you need, and it tells the story. And I hope that you have understood the story of this wedding through these images. And maybe I need to tell you something about it, but maybe I don't. Maybe you understand what this wedding was about already. Getting back to product, though, this book is nice, and if you were married and you had photographs made, this is a really nice way to put them all together and keep them and to display them. So I think it's a nice book. People want this. This is something people want. So this is a product that you could offer in terms of your wedding photography or your event photography. This is another album that I'm just going to talk over as we're continuing. This isn't video of a book that was printed, but instead the spreads that were exported out of Photoshop to show what it's going to look like in its final stages. This being the cover. So I just want to note that the design of this is something that I just created, but it doesn't matter what the design is. The idea that it's nice to have a balance of symbols in your storytelling, that's the idea that I want to convey when showing you these final products, because that will inform each time you make a photograph during the event. It'll inform the way that you approach it. You'll note that it's really great to show details, and it's also really great to show things from a wider perspective, to show context. You'll note that you can put things side by side and they tell a greater story by sharing those 2 moments together. And so let's look at this album as we see this happening. So we see this animation of things happening all at once in our vision because they're stuck on the page, but we understand the moments that happened that led to that. And we connect it to this image over here. And so to make a product that has this in it, you would have to have made these individual elements, and that means that you have to figure out, well, do I need a wide shot of something, or do I need a tight shot? Should I use the telephoto lens, or should I go wide? These are questions you're going to have all day long at an event, and you need to have a mental checklist in your head of, well, do I have enough to represent the idea of the space and the context to tell the story? And do I now need something that is a detail that shows me more, or shows the viewer more, so they have a different or enhanced understanding of what was happening. So that should be something happening in your head all the time as a photographer, kind of pre-visualization of what it is you're making, so that you can have that mental checklist. Now, of course, it's not that hard. You could just keep taking pictures as you're standing there, and if you do, you just change it a bunch, and you could just take a bunch of pictures and then put them together later. It's not like you have to know what these pages are going to look like or anything like that. No, you're just going to catch all the moments that you can catch from as many nice perspectives as you can find yourself in. So, of course you're going to be in the right place at the right time. And if you're there to do that job, then people understand and expect that you're going to be there. And yeah, you're the one who should be in front of the couple as they are going to the limo. There's nobody else who should be there except for you and an aunt or two, nudging her smartphone in the way. It's okay. But in any case, as a example of a product, this is just putting together some of the moments that were grabbed along the day. And this wasn't a moment that was a distinct moment. Neither was this. But, the lighting did fall more nicely on this cake at certain times. And yeah, the sun, lower in the sky did throw nicer shadows in this shot. And so timing is important even in these shots where it's static. It's easier to grab things when you're in control of them. And so group shots and things like that are important in telling the story of who was there and present. And each event you photograph, you're going to find that the people who are present, they inform the seriousness or the amount of fun or the style of these sometimes. You also have a role there. You can influence them, and you can pump them up, or you could make them serious. And you can create moments, and that's fun too. But that's your style, and also the style of the people who you're working with. In any case, in terms of checklists and making things, sometimes it's not about pre-visualization as much it is kind of like reflecting as you're shooting and saying, wait, do I have enough of those, or do I have something like that? You'll come upon a new scene, and you'll say, this scene is kind of very similar to a lot of other types of scenes I've been shooting all night long, and you might not make that photograph. Maybe you say, that person, I was photographing them earlier, and their hat looked much nicer. Who knows? But you sort of make that mental checklist, and when something changes, when a new event occurs, you have to photograph what the change is if it's an important change. And so if you're photographing an event and the event evolves to shift into a new gear, you are aware of it, and you're present and ready to photograph it. And that means being ready with, of course, your equipment and with your knowledge of how you're lighting this event, or how you're reacting to the light that's already there, which is the case in these photographs. Sometimes you have to create that light, and that's table shots. I love table shots. Group shots? Hey, you gotta have group shots. All right, and this was not lit. This was lit just by the light that was there, the warm orange light. In any case, so this is just another example of a product, and I'm going toward the end here as we show the evening evolving. You need to be able to shoot in the dark when you're shooting events where people are moving around and quickly, and there isn't enough light. And so the idea of mixing flash with the light that was present in the room, the ambient light, that's something that I like to play with, but that's something to toy with. I like the idea of these crazy streaks when the camera moves, and then the stop frozen action when the flash goes off, mixing together in the scene. But hey, that's my deal. In any case, this is another example of a product. I have another one. So this is something that I think I've shown the class before, but this album was made to contain the photographs that were chosen out of the shoot, and I don't know that I was sure I was going to make an album when I made these photographs, but by quickly going through this album, you can understand the sequence of events through the evening and the feeling of the event. And I don't have to take too much time. We could just do this. That's it. do this very quickly. You were able to follow that really quickly as I was going through images, and I'll slow it down a little bit. Sure, why not? But it's nice to understand that through that number of images, that short amount of seconds that it took you to see that, you were able to gain a sense of a feeling of this event. Now, you weren't there. I was. It was nice. And the people who are featured in these images, they have a different experience of the event. And as they connect with these individuals' pages, they'll recognize textures and moments, and they'll remember that, oh, that's right, there was that box. You know, they'll remember things that they may have forgotten or locked in memory or whatever. But in terms of a product, showing you this is just, again, to show you that what you're making in a moment on an individual photographic level, you're making a photograph. Here it is. Click. You made it. You're also, as an event photographer, depending on how your work is set up, you're working to tell a story through a number of images, and you are making compositions which you know will create a variety of views that will create exciting layouts or juxtapositions when the final product is put together. In this case, it's an album where you can stop and see the entire spread and compare things and all of that. If this was a film instead, and actually this is a film, but if this was a film instead, then you would be seeing things perhaps more like on a one scene at a time level. Yeah. When I make an album, I like to play with, which images go where and how they affect one another. I like the idea of the fun because it's authentic. It has something that's real there, and I think I might have made some more formal photographs of these folks, but these are the moments that kind of stand out as being real. And yeah, we made some very standard things as well. I actually got to say something. Making something special is difficult, and it's hard to make something special when it's so easy to make it standard. But you have something that you do that's special. I'm sure that's something you can show using your camera. I like the way that this spread is laid out. I kind of like the way that this product is a little bit special because this is a difficult thing to do with standard software. I just do it in Photoshop and I create it myself, and I dig it. Special. All right. Well, in any case, so here's another example in terms of storytelling. This shows the entire setup and the panoramic wide-angle view of this small space with this small amount of people. We don't need this, but we could show only these photographs that are tight and close up and make the space seem large and bold. But it's very nice to see the context, especially for the people who were there who remember that space. In any case, as a shooter, I look for any available light that I can get. So in these photographs, if I'm using a little bit of flash to fill in the shadow, that's great. I want to hold on to the normal available light that's in the scene, though, so I don't lose the saturation of the colors behind the subjects and everything like that. When it gets dark, sometimes you have to just go with the light that is there, and this is all available light. There's no flashes going off or anything like that. These are true moments in real light, and when light levels dip and you have to pump that ISO and lengthen those shutter speeds, you're going to get some blur, and you can play with that, and you can have fun with that. And you can still use that natural available light to do that, and that's something that's, I think, special as well. This is all available light as well. So here I'm mixing available light with flash to create brightness in a subject where they would have no light on them. It would just be a blur of blue and red. So I like the idea of mixing that, and then also showing the room as it is without lighting. And then of course I have to use flash to light up faces and just to freeze moments. And so that's the way the party generally goes down. Lots of partying, lots of frozen moments here. But in terms of a way to represent the night, there was a lot of fun had that night. All right, this isn't the only way to show a product. I'm just going to show something else if I can. This is a portal for a client on my website where they can view the images from their event, and making a spread for a page. I just made a little bit of a placard here so that you could see the representative, the icons, the symbols of the event, and I feel like this simple card kind of does everything to show what happened, really. And so I think that's a nice thing. And if you're oriented toward sharing little bits of things online through social media, it's really nice to be able to lay out a representation of your product that shows the encapsulation of these moments to symbolize, wow, everybody can get a really clear sense right away of what was happening. In terms of what is offered, though, these photographs, this is made a long time ago. This is 2010. But the photographs on this website, they're just, this is a quick website that I made. It just shows everything really fast. Everybody can just scrub through here and look at photographs and next. See the things that were photographed that evening. And that's really nice. I like that. And if they want to get back to the gallery, that's the way that was built up. So this is a simple way for somebody to simply view the proofs, if you want to think of it that way, of the photos that were made of an event. This is one way to do this. This isn't standard at this moment, I would say. But there is no way for somebody, for example, to order this online right now or to see it in a higher resolution. This is a protective device, though. This is a nice photograph, but it's not, when we zoom in, it's very pixelated, and they can't really use that, without the pixelization there, but it's still not bad. You could steal it. I'm trying to protect the work that I do, so I want to make sure that people can't just come and grab things and steal them without ordering prints or anything like that at a too high of a quality. You can watermark your images, you can protect them other ways, but this is just one way that I do it. In this case, these images all have metadata embedded in the images, which includes the file name, so that if they want to download this, the file name is attached to this. They can contact me to tell me which one that they really like or anything like that. It's also including my copyright, so that if they go have print made somewhere at a lab, they are going to be stopped and said, hey, that's really not cool. Maybe, who knows. Here's another example of a little portal that you can view the event's photographs on. But in any case, these aren't necessarily products, but ways for you to make the images that you shoot available. But they could also be thought of as holdings of value. These web galleries are, in some cases, the end product for an event photographer. Yeah, I did my work. I put the photos up on the gallery, and then you're on your own from there, or you download them, or you buy them through another mechanism. So back to the idea of the product in event photography. This encapsulates a lot that we just saw. This albums we just saw, of course. I actually made prints, but there's no prints to show. They would look just like the images that you see in those. But I would like to show the idea of prints by going over to Photo Mechanic here. And this is a gallery that is the gallery from the wedding of Angela. This is the selects that we actually used in the album production. So all these photos ended up being used in the album, or were at least possibilities. So now if I open this up, you see that there are a lot more images that were not chosen, that were made and also offered to the client so they could see them in terms of choosing which ones they want to include. This one wasn't chosen. This one was. Okay, cool. And so then to understand just a little bit more, these are the ones that I allowed her to see, the client. There were others that I made that I didn't even accept as usable. And those were taken out. And that's a wise idea. Otherwise, a client might think that you're a terrible photographer because you're showing them your worst work. You can, of course, vary the level that you cull the images and pick out the bad ones and include only the good ones. But in this case, I just wanted to show you the images that were finally selected, and then to just talk about the fact that each one of these was made so that I could make a print from it. I was composing these images so that if I wanted to make a 5x7 or an 8x10 or turn it into a square, I could do that. This image got a lot of space around it, these glasses, and it's not as though, I felt like that was the best composition completely, but I wanted to give it some breadth so that if I wanted to use it in the album or wanted to make a 8x10 or 5x7 or whatever out of it, that it would be something I could do without sacrificing the composition by having to crop off something in the bottom or the top. So if I have to take an image like, let's find something that's hard to deal with if I need to crop it. So here we go. So it's not really hard to deal with at all, but if I want to go and crop this image and I want to constrain this crop within an 8x10 like this, and then I have to do this, I have to choose whether I'm going to sacrifice the blue light on the top or giving him his hand a little bit of space. And so I have to make that compromise. And shooting wide or a little bit more wide as I'm doing here doesn't force me to make a terrible sacrifice in the end. So that's just something to understand as we're talking about the images that we choose to shoot, and then the images we choose to show, the images we choose then to include in a collection that does the job of storytelling, and then a style of shooting that allows for that kind of use later on by not shooting and cropping too tight to the scene, but still cropping in tight enough that you have enough detail. So that's important to just talk about. Okay, so I've shown you the idea of a web gallery and what images look like online there. Mine are very old, and you can expect that there are some very sophisticated web gallery services or sites that allow you to do that for free. You could also have paid sites, including your own website, where you can offer images up to clients so they can review them. The other way to do that is to simply allow the client to access a folder of images in terms of the disk you send to them or a link that they can go to and download a number of images. So this is something that, of course, is a product and is something that you can offer depending on your business style. You're watching a video right now. I guess that's easy enough to understand that taking a collection of things and putting it together in time with sound and image, like you're seeing here, and like I showed you in terms of this album here, this is a video of an album, so it's a little bit meta. But you could certainly make a slideshow style presentation out of the still images that you make and put it together with music or something like that and offer that as a product as well. Like I said, there are other products, but the main idea is that by considering what the product might be that you're creating, it really informs the photography part of event photography, because it makes that checklist list. Chuck, check. Check, chuck. Checklist. Active in your head. And maybe you have an actual checklist from a client, Maybe it's a real checklist that you are given. Hey, make sure to get this. And maybe that's something you want. Maybe you ask the client, hey, what is it you want me to make sure to get if I can? And maybe it's just a mental checklist that you have running as you're trying to remember what scenes you have shot before and what the storytelling aspect of the images you're making is. And figuring out, well, do I have enough of this? And do I have... did I do this part? I shot a wedding once. I didn't even shoot the bride and groom together. I didn't do it at all. I forgot, and they forgot. They actually said, "Oh, no, 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 we'll do it later. We'll do it later. We'll do it later." And then we never did it later, and I left. And then that was it. But yeah, it's you got to make a mental checklist in your head sometimes. It's a good thing to do. They weren't mad because they were in other pictures. They were very happy. All right. Well, anyway, so in terms of the product, I just want to include the idea that there are other things that are part of what you offer to people. You being present at an event, that is definitely an experiential thing. You are part of the event, and you are influencing the people around you, and so your presence at the event, that is kind of a side product in another way, and people will want or not want that if they see it. So you might be fun, and people want you to be fun, and when you come to the party's fun. So that might be an experience that they want. They might want a photographer because of the impression that it makes, that oh, I'm being photographed. This is if you're having a small event and nobody's there who's officially photographing it, people in the event might be, oh, little tiny event. And if you have a photographer there, they it's important. People are being photographed. This is being recorded because it's an important event. It creates an impression. But also they're concerned with the impression that they give the outside world. And so you making photographs of an event is recording it, and they can represent themselves to the world and have a positive impression to the world. So that's a side product that you're really making when you choose the moment to snap the photograph, and whether to get it when their eyes are wide and happy and open, or whether they're mellow and relaxed and closed. That forms an impression on the viewer. So that's a product. Exposure. This is interesting, but we are social people, and when I make things I'm proud of, I share them, and maybe the product that you're offering is, in addition to the other things we talked about, the fact that people are going to get exposed by the fact that you're proud of what you make. So if you're a photographer who shoots events and people love seeing themselves show up on your blog or in your feed, then they're excited about the exposure that comes with you photographing them. And so that's something that's a product, that's something of value. And the idea of sharing, this is not the same thing, but less of the, hey, I want to make myself look good, but to be able to take an event and to allow somebody who was not there to experience it, to say, hey, we were there and we see this, and now I want you to share this with you. That's a product that you're making possible. And so I just wanted to leave you with that final thought that you're making memories, and that's a good thing. Yep, we're back here. So that was the talk on product.